Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Mary if you're new here, and today we are going to be talking about I'm Thinking of Ending Things. This is the third video in like a series that I've been doing where I read a book and then I watch the adaptation, whether that be a TV series or in this case a movie. And then I give you my thoughts on how the adaptation compares to the original work and which one I think was sort of better, or if I think there was one that was better than the other. I start these videos just with a general overview of the plot and the storyline, I guess, and that will all be spoiler free. I will let you know when the spoilers are going to start happening, but I feel like it can't really do this type of video with any sort of gusto or justice without talking about spoilers. So just so you know, there will be spoilers at some point in this video. They will be clearly marked and you will be asked to leave before we get to them if you don't want to see them. But without further ado, we're just going to get started on this book. I don't have any notes for this, but I finished reading the book yesterday and then I watched the movie last night. So it's all pretty fresh on my mind. But yeah, we're just gonna get started with the plot of the book. So I'm Thinking of Ending Things is a 2016 novel by Ian Reid. It follows a couple in the car on their way to meet the boyfriend's parents for the first time, and the girlfriend is thinking about ending things. So that's sort of the premise of the book. The book is a horror book. It does a very good job of building an uneasy, unsettled feeling in the reader. And there's a lot of weird stuff that happens, but I don't want to go too much further into what happens in the actual book in case you want to read the book, because I knew nothing about the book going into it, and I think that definitely, like, benefited me as a reader. I really feel like if you wanted to read the book, that's all you really need to know about it, and you should go into it sort of blind and not let anything really spoil you. So I'm not going to tell you any more about the plot of the book in this portion, but I will say the author does a really good job at making the reader feel very unsettled. And the author did a really good job of like actually quelling up fear in me in parts. A lot of weird stuff happens and a lot of like unease is built up. There's also some pretty gruesome aspects. And just the atmosphere is, it's snowing, it's dark, and they're on this car ride. The reader's inside of the protagonist's head, and she is just like very unsure of her relationship, very unsure of her decisions. There's some weird stuff that's been happening with her as well that you sort of get a little bit of a glance into. It's also told from the first person, so you already know off the bat that it's an unreliable narrator, and I just feel like the book did a really, really good job of portraying that. Just really making the reader not really know what was real, what was coming next, what was going to happen, which I really, really appreciated. I really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. It would have been a 5-star, but I thought that the twist at the end could have been handled better. I don't know. I was shocked by it, so I'm not going to spoil anything here, obviously, in this portion, but the twist in the book really, really took me by surprise, and I think to some extent that can be a benefit, but also I think part of a good twist is that there were clues laid out, and I'm not sure how true that is for the book. But that being said, now if you want to read the book specifically, I would say you should click out of this video probably right now, because I'm gonna sort of tell more of the actual plot of the movie because I don't think it really spoils anything. The film adaptation of I'm Thinking of Ending Things is an absurdist take on it. So it's less horror elements, more just bizarre, which if you knew anything about the director typically does absurdist films. I think he also did The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And that's like the least bizarre of the movies he's done. And for me, as a moviegoer, that's like the most bizarre I can handle in a film is stuff like Donnie Darko, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Those are movies that I really, really, really love. But if it gets more bizarre than that, I can't really handle it, I feel. So this movie, to me, was a bit of a miss just because of that aspect. But if you like that kind of thing, I think you would really enjoy this. I've heard from several people on my Instagram stories, because that's where I review my books first. If you're not following me, it'll be linked in the description box down below. You should. Several people messaged me after seeing my review of I'm Thinking of Ending Things, the book, and asked me if I'd seen the movie. And by the time I checked my messages, I had, because I literally, like I said, I finished this book yesterday and then I watched this movie last night. And a lot of the people who were recommending the movie to me, I had some people say they thought the movie was even better than the book, and I had some people say that they didn't read the book, but they loved the movie and thought it was amazing. I didn't love the movie. I think that's like a hot take, but the film follows the same storyline. Girl, boy in car, girl is thinking of ending things. The movie does this thing to give you sort of the internal monologue feeling where the female protagonist will be thinking and the actress is speaking, so you can see her face while she's thinking. The actors also frequently break the fourth wall where she will say something and look directly at the camera while she's saying it, which is unsettling, so that sort of did the same thing. But as the plot of the movie goes on, strange things happen, but it becomes less and less scary and more confusing and bizarre. So I was still like on the edge of my seat, wanted to watch every second of the movie, but I don't know that I was as satisfied with the movie as I was with the book. I put the book down and was like, wow, my mind is blown. I finished watching the movie and was like, I mean, okay, I guess. I just felt like it was 2 hours and 15 minutes where not a whole lot happened. So other than the tone of the book and the film being slightly skewed differently, the book gets more and more and more dark and scary. The movie gets more and more strange and just sort of, whimsical is the wrong word, but whimsical is the word I want to use for what sort of happens in the movie. But now I feel like that's all I can really say without spoiling either one. So if you have not seen the movie yet and you have not read the book yet and you would like to do either, I would recommend clicking out of the video here. Goodbye. Thank you so much for stopping by. Because now we're going to get into the spoiler portion of the book first and then movie, because I thought the adaptations were so different. I actually might just do them like overlaid together. So we're going to start with the book because I think that's the easiest place to start. The book, again, starts with a girl and a boy in a car. The girl is never named in the book. In the movie, she's given a name. And as time goes on, something that the movie does that I thought was really, really interesting and a good take on the book is the details of the movie keep changing. So the actress's outfits keep changing. Or she has like 3 different pairs of glasses that she puts on. Originally they're red, and then they're big and brown and round, and then they're black. And then she's originally wearing a pink coat and a red scarf, and then later she's wearing a navy blue coat, and she's originally wearing a floral dress with a sweater over top of it, and later the striped sweater is exchanged for like a pearl necklace, and her hair goes from up to down to up again. The way the director did the absurdism and like the sort of you're not sure what's happening and unreliable narrator bits in the movie was a lot more like, can you trust your own eyes? Are you paying attention? Do you know what's happening? In the book, that doesn't really happen. The protagonist, whose head we are inside, is never given a name. She's completely unnamed the whole time. At one point, her boyfriend, Jake, calls her a name, and she's like, is that my name? I don't think that's my name. Which is just odd and interesting because she's so unsure of herself. Also, the further you get into her narrative and her recalling things in the past, the more you realize that she's not really sure who she is, what's happened. She can't really remember a lot of things about herself. And the way the movie did this was by switching her career around. So eventually they do get to Jake's parents' house, and whenever she's talking to them about how they met, she tells the story that is told to you in the book, that they were at a trivia night at a bar, and she like leaned over and talked to him, and he was being kind of pretentious, and then at the end of the night he gives her his phone number written on a napkin, and they've sort of just been like dating since then. But in the movie, she tells them that story originally, and then later, Jake tells a different story about how they met because she was a waitress at a diner. And I should say, what the movie did that was really, really good, that I thought was like kind of genius, is the book overlays the whole story with like a description of people discussing a murder or a crime or some horrible event that has happened. And the farther you get into the book, every other chapter, there's like a little I guess, transcript of people discussing, like, oh my god, I can't believe he did this. Did you know anything about him? Did you see anything odd? And like all this different stuff. So you know that something's coming in the book that's going to be horrible, and that helps build the horror element. The movie overlays Jake and his girlfriend's whole drive, arrival to the parents' house. Everything that happens is overlaid with a school janitor who is cleaning the halls, and like at one point Jake is singing along to Oklahoma in the car, and he says something about how he knows all the words to Oklahoma because his high school used to do it every couple of years. And so he grew up sort of around hearing it. And then you see the janitor cleaning in the auditorium, and students are practicing Oklahoma. So stuff like that was really, really interesting, and I think was done really well. In the book and the film, when Jake and his girlfriend arrive at his parents' house, Jake doesn't want to go inside right away. They live on this farm, and he's like, I want to show you around the farm. I'll give you the abridged tour of the farm. And so they do. They go and see the sheeps, where the sheeps are, and there's 2 dead lambs, and they're frozen solid. And there's a really strange exchange between the girlfriend where she's like, well, what's going to happen to the lambs? And Jake's like, what do you mean what's going to happen to them? They're already dead. What else could happen to them? And she's wondering when they're going to be buried, and it'll be in the spring when they can do a bonfire. And it's just this very strange, unsettling conversation. And then Jake says, do you want to see where we used to keep the pigs? So he shows her an empty pen where the pigs used to be, and then tells her this really gross story about how his dad came out one day and found the pigs weren't moving and thought, wow, that's kind of odd. I wonder what's wrong with them. So he lifted them up, and they were being eaten alive by maggots on the underside. That was one of the best elements of horror that they actually kept for the movie, and I'm really, really glad that they did keep it in because I felt like it gave the reader the appropriate sense of unease. And it was a pretty good harbinger of the night to come. Then they go inside and meet Jake's parents, and this is where the book and the movie really divulge and become completely different stories. In the book and in the movie, Jake's parents don't come down right away. So Jake and his girlfriend are sort of standing in the hallway. Jake offers his girlfriend his old slippers to wear because the house is cold and drafty because it's an old house. And they wait for Jake's parents to come downstairs. And that happens in the book and the film. In the film, when Jake's parents come downstairs, they all go and eat dinner, and then the dinner conversation is very awkward. Jake seems very uncomfortable being there. He's like angry at his parents for the littlest things. What was interesting is in the movie, the dinner becomes a bit of a spectacle of Jake showing off his girlfriend and his girlfriend sort of describing her job. And this is another way that I felt like the movie did a really good job of sort of hinting into the fact that this girlfriend isn't really like, there's something off about her, I guess. Whereas in the book, because you're inside the girlfriend's mind, there's nothing off with the girlfriend, there's something off with everybody else. So in the movie, first the girlfriend talks about how she's a quantum physicist, and then later she talks about how she's trying to find the cure to old age. And then later she's talking about how she's a poet, and actually she's a painter. And in the movie, at a certain point, everyone in Jake's family sort of vanishes from the dining room. And so she gets up and is looking for them and walking around, and she ends up going upstairs to Jake's old bedroom. In the book, when she goes upstairs to Jake's room, what she discovers is a photograph of a girl who doesn't match the description of the girl who Jake said his ex-girlfriend was. Jake said his ex-girlfriend was tall and brunette. This girl is short and blonde, but there's no other pictures of anybody else. And there's someone laying on the grass behind him, or behind her, that's not Jake, but it is somebody. And she is like, well, that's really weird. I don't know who that girl is. In the movie, when she goes upstairs, she finds a book of poetry. And in the movie, on the car ride up there, Jake made her recite one of the poems that she wrote because she's a poet. And she opens up the book of poetry to the page that it's on, and it is the poem that she allegedly wrote, but it's already been published by someone else. So that's another way that the movie sort of shows you that this narrator is unreliable, whereas I feel like in the book, because it's in the first person and things keep sort of changing around, I think that's the biggest difference to me between the movie and the book. Is that in the movie, the way that you are clued into the fact that things aren't quite as they seem is that you're shown. Whereas in the book, she is seeing all these weird things happening around her. And she's like, well, I mean, that's odd. There's just different things that are odd. Also, in the book, he says that his family used to have a dog that scratched at the door to the basement, and that's why the basement is covered in scratches. In the movie, he says his parents still have a dog, and then this border collie comes up named Jimmy. And when his girlfriend is upstairs looking around his bedroom, she sees an urn sitting on his bookshelf with the name Jimmy on a dog tag, or like on a little like dog, what are those things called? Like the name tags that dogs have around it. So very creepy, very odd, very weird. Is the dog real? Is the dog not real? The dog only appears when she asks about it. Additionally, what happened in both the book and the film that I thought the film did a really good job with is there's a picture on the wall. All the photographs in Jake's house are like old photos. And she's looking at a photo of a child and she's like, well, who is this? And Jake says, I can't believe you can't recognize it. That's me. And in the book, she's looking at it and she's like, I think that's me. And she describes like a picture. It's like, looks like a little girl and it looks like her. In the movie, it showed a picture of a little girl at first, and she's like, who is this? And when Jake says it's me, she looks at it again, and it turns into a little boy. So I thought that was really interesting. The other thing where the movie completely divulged from the book, in addition to all the costume changes, because a lot of those happened, that's where I first noticed it was at Jake's parents' house. But Jake's parents keep getting older and younger and older and younger again, and not at the same time. So there's even a scene when Jake's mother is in her deathbed and Jake's dad comes out. He's younger than he was when they first arrived at the farm. There's another scene where Jake's mom is young and it's presumed that Jake is a child because she's picking up his toys around the living room. And she asks Jake's girlfriend to take some dirty clothes down to the basement. So in the movie, that's how Jake's girlfriend ends up in the basement. Sorry about that. Murphy wanted to come sit in the corner, so he's sitting over there. In the film, when she goes into the basement, she lifts up the washer lid to put the nightgown that she's supposed to be throwing in there in. And she decides to pull out the clothes that are already in there, and they're all the same uniform shirt, and they all say RHS on them. Which, if you were paying attention, is the uniform shirt that the janitor is wearing at the high school. This is what I mean when I say that the movie actually gave you hints to what was going on and the book did not. At all. But in the book, when she goes into the basement, she finds art supplies. And there's like rows and rows of like canned goods and just like weird stuff. Not really weird, but like typical farmhouse, almost the junk collecting room, but also like canned goods and extra cellar, like potatoes, radishes, things that you keep in the basement because they need to be kept dark and cool, but you don't necessarily need to put them in the fridge. Am I making any sense? I don't know. But In the book, she goes down into the basement, and that's what it's like, and she can hear Jake's parents arguing above her. And in the book, Jake is the one who is a scientist who works in a lab. And when she's in the basement, she hears his parents arguing about how they wish he hadn't quit his job at the lab. But they're talking about how he's like wasting his life, and they can't believe he quit his job. But she's confused because he, in the book, is telling her, we have to leave tonight because I have to get home so I can go to work in the morning at the lab. In the basement, she sees all these art supplies down there, and there's all these paintings of something really dark and creepy with long, pointy fingernails and a small child huddling in a corner. So that's the art that's in the basement in the book. Very dark, very creepy. In the film, the art that's in the basement are like prints of the landscapes that Jake's girlfriend was showing to Jake's parents that she said that she had made. So it's again, just like when she found the poem that she had written, already written in a book, she's now seeing the art that she made has already been painted by another artist. Again, you're sort of left to question, what is her reality? What is she doing here? And really, what's going on? That's like the whole premise of the movie for me. The whole time I was just like, why? What is going on here? What is happening? But eventually, Jake and his girlfriend, at much prodding from Jake's girlfriend, do leave his parents' house. But in the book, before they go, Jake's mother gives her a portrait that she painted of Jake, and she folds it up and says, like, keep this, don't open it until you get home, but I want you to have this, and Jake would want you to have this. In the movie, nothing like that happens. They just sort of leave and start driving on their way. In both the book and the movie, Jake, as they're driving, is like, we should stop and get some dessert. And in the movie, they go to like a local, it's called Tulsi Twirl, something. In the book, it's Dairy Queen. So I think it's like kind of the same type of thing as like a Dairy Queen. But in the book, the girlfriend is lactose intolerant. So she couldn't eat the dessert at Jake's parents' house. So that's why he suggests that they stop. In the movie, there's no lactose intolerance. They just decide to stop because Jake says it'll help me stay awake. So as he's talking about wanting to go get ice cream at this place, in the movie he tells his girlfriend he needs to go up to the window to see who's working, and if certain people are working, she has to go to the window because certain girls are mean to him. And his girlfriend's like, this is really weird, you're a grown man, why would these high school girls intimidate you? But this scene is overlaid with a scene, or it might have been overlaid a little bit before, because I think it wasn't exactly, but the janitor is walking through the halls, and there are girls who end up being the girls working at this ice cream place, just laughing at him and like mimicking the way he walks and mimicking the way he looks and like being cruel to him. So they go in the middle of the snowstorm to get ice cream cones, or like essentially blizzards. If you've been to a Dairy Queen, it's like ice cream and candy, and they even did like the blizzard flip. But in both the book and the movie, there's 3 girls working at this Dairy Queen-esque setting, this ice cream shop. And in both the book and the movie, there's 2 like pretty blonde girls, and they're giggling at Jake, and he can't go up to the window because he's embarrassed, and he's like, I can't go up to them, like, they'll never take my order, they'll never pay any attention to me, they make me feel so bad. And so his girlfriend goes and does it, and she's like, this is so odd. And she eventually asks the other girl who's working there, who's brunette and has a huge rash on her arm, if she will make them whatever blizzard they order. In the book, they order lemonades. In the movie, they order blizzards. I don't think it really makes that big of a difference. I think the reason that the lemonade was included in the book is because it was one more detail that like Jake didn't tell his parents that she was lactose intolerant. And so it's just one more thing on the list of things where she's like, maybe I should break up with him. Maybe I should end things. I wish I hadn't come on this trip. I should have ended things before I got here. That's like what's going on the whole time in the book. In the movie and in the book, the other girl ends up giving them their ice cream / lemonade, whatever. And she tries to give the girlfriend a warning. And she basically says like, I'm scared for you. You don't have to move forward. You can just stay here. Nothing bad has to happen. And then when they get back in the car, the girlfriend is asking Jake, in both the book and the film, she's like, did you notice that girl with the rash? And Jake's like, no, I didn't notice. And she can't believe that he didn't notice, basically, because she's trying to figure out why she would say something so strange. Then neither one of them really finishes their like dessert snack thing. And so both of them just have them in the cup holder, and Jake suddenly is like, we have to throw these out. This is disgusting. I don't want this in my car. I don't want it melting on my car. We're just gonna go throw this away somewhere. And so he drives off onto a side road, and the girlfriend is like, I don't think we should be doing this. We can just throw them away when we get home. This isn't a big deal. I want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. And this is when the intensity is sort of really, really building in the book, and you're getting really, really scared. And in both the book and the film, they drive down this really like narrow, dark country road, and they end up at this huge high school. And keep in mind, it's pouring snow. Is that what you say with snow? I don't live somewhere where it's super snowy, but it's like snowing hard. And they pull up at this high school and he's like, I'm just gonna go throw these away. He goes up to the trash can, lifts the lid, decides not to throw it away in the trash can, and then disappears for a while. In the book, he's gone for like 5 minutes. In the movie, it was like 2 seconds, but I guess it's because you're like watching it as it happens. Murphy wanted to say hi, so he's sitting over here. But in both the book and the film, when Jake gets back to the car, his girlfriend is sort of like, well, where were you? Like, why did you not just throw it away in that trash can? He says, well, that trash can is full of sand, or ice. Sand for the ice, I think. I don't really know. Again, it's not snowy where I live. Also, the movie is set in Oklahoma, and correct me if I'm wrong, there were not blizzards in Oklahoma. Am I wrong? I live farther north than Oklahoma, and I don't think there's no blizzards here. But he says, yeah, I just remembered there was a dumpster behind the school. In the book, he didn't go to high school at that school, so the girlfriend can't figure out why he would know that there's dumpsters there, and she can't figure out why they are even here. Why did he even know the school existed? In the movie, he says he did go to high school there, so that's a little less, like, confusion, I guess. But then she and Jake sort of start making out in the car in both the book and the movie, and then Jake says, somebody saw us. And in the movie, it's overlaid with a scene of a janitor, like, looking through a peephole. I think that's what it's supposed to be. I don't know what he was looking at, but you just see his eye through this like hole slot. And then in the book, he says he saw somebody standing up in the school staring at them through the window. And she's like, well, he's probably just trying to figure out who's out here because it's the middle of the night. And Jake's like, no, he was creeping on us. He's like a pervert. He's doing all this creepy stuff and he's getting really, really mad. In both the book and the film, he's getting really, really agitated. And he gets out of the car and goes into the school to go like talk some sense into him or something. And the girlfriend's sitting in the car like, well, I don't know what he's doing. He took the keys, so I can't go anywhere. And this again is where the book and the movie are really, really different. So in the book, when she finally does decide to go inside the building, she sees a janitor at the end of a dark hall. It's not well lit, and she's instantly afraid of him. And so she is like trying to get away from him, trying to run away, and she keeps running and hiding in different places. And eventually over the PA system, there's a country song that they were listening to on the way up in the drive that she says that Jake replayed, but he acted like he didn't. And she was like, okay, well, maybe he didn't. I don't know. In the book, that song starts playing over and over and over again on the PA system, and it gets louder each time it plays. And she says she doesn't know how long it's been playing. She's just been laying on the floor. Also, in both the book and the movie, she was getting strange calls. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, but maybe I should have. I just forgot. But in the beginning of the book, she tells you about how she hasn't told Jake about the caller. And the caller is a man who has been calling from her phone number and leaving messages on her phone in the middle of the night. And the message is always the same. And it's something like, there's only one question left to answer. And so all night at Jake's parents' house, she was getting calls and Jake's parents were saying, you should pick up the phone. And that happens in the book and the movie. In the movie, however, because you don't know her phone number, she's given a name. And so she starts getting phone calls from Lucy, which is the name that he says she has. And then later he changes her name to like Louisa, which maybe Lucy is short for Louisa. I don't really know. And then later again, she gets a phone call from Yvonne. And I think Yvonne is supposed to be her name at that point. I'm not really sure. I feel like that part was not as well done in the movie because it wasn't as clear that she's getting calls from herself. So those calls have been happening the whole book and the whole film, but like I said, you don't really know what's going on in the film as much as you do in the book. And in the book, while she's in the school, she's trying to hide from this janitor, and she says the school's built like a maze, which if you think about it, high schools kind of are built like a maze. There's like a hallway and then a bunch of classrooms off of it, and she's trying to get into the different classrooms. All of the classroom doors are locked, except for there's one classroom that's not locked, and it's the art room. And she realizes at some point that there's paint all over the walls, and the paint says there's only one question left to answer, all this different stuff. And then she realizes she has paint on her hands. So she's trying to wipe her hands off her on her pants. And then she decides to go to the gym. And so she's trying to hide from the janitor / Jake. So she's yelling for Jake, but she's also thinking about the janitor. So she's like yelling for Jake, but also trying to hide from the janitor. It's kind of like, you don't really know what to believe. She thinks that Jake has left her at some point, and then she goes back to the front door to try to leave the school. The school's been locked from the inside, and she looks out and realizes that Jake's car is gone. So Jake has left her here, and so now she's running through the locker room, and she sees Jake's shoes are on the floor, and Jake's clothes are in the locker room, and she's like, well, God, why would he take his clothes off? Like, the janitor must have done something to him, and so that's what she's sort of thinking in the book. I'm not going to tell you the big ending yet. Meanwhile, in the movie, she goes right in and talks to the janitor and asks him, hey, have you seen this boy? He's my boyfriend. And the janitor's like, well, what did he look like? And she starts saying like, oh, well, I don't really know what he looks like because I saw him once, however many years ago. I was on an anniversary date with my girlfriend and he like came up to me at this bar and was being all awkward and really creeped me out. And so she's going on this long rant, and that's how the movie sort of tells you that she's not real and this night with Jake's parents isn't real. And then the movie does a lot of other stuff where it like adds in a weird ballet sequence, and the movie culminates in a musical number, which is what I mean by like absurd. But what happens at the end of the book is the girlfriend sees all the clothes everywhere, and then eventually she remembers that she has the drawing that Jake's mom did. And she opens it up and she says, and I knew right then that it was us. And so that's how the book sort of tells you what's going on, is it switches tense. So instead of being, I did this, I see this, I'm doing this, it switches, the narrator switches from saying I to we. And then the narrator takes you into the janitor's closet. She says, this is where we belong. And then sort of walks you through the janitor's suicide. And that's how the book ends. So at the end of the book, you realize that this whole thing, the whole time, it was just Jake, who is now a janitor at a school after having a mental break, how he wishes his life sort of had played out. And like, if he had approached that girl at that bar that one time, maybe his whole life would have been different. Pretty crazy, I think. I thought it was insane. I had to reread the part where she sees the painting and sees the drawing and realizes that it's her, like over and over again. And it sort of explains why the drawing or the picture of the kid in the house, she's like, I think that's me. But then she's like, oh no, it's Jake. Because me is Jake. Jake is me. And that's why I think the ending of the book was so much more powerful than the ending of the movie. Although they both kind of ended the same. So the ending of the movie is Jake, after doing a shift as a janitor, locks up the school, goes outside. He goes and he sits in his truck, and then he turns his truck off rather than keeping it on, and he sees displayed on the windshield the commercial for the ice cream place that Jake and the girl went to earlier in the night. I'm not using her name because her name changed so much in the movie, by the way. I don't know if that was clear or not. I don't know what her name is supposed to be, and I'm pretty sure she's like not named in the credits, so she doesn't have a name. But Jake is watching this thing happen, and then a pig, an animated pig with maggots and blood coming out of it. It's animated, so it's not as gross, but it's still pretty gross. Comes up to Jake and is like, it's time. Follow me, it's time. Or like, come on, it's time. Which is something that you heard in the background several times throughout the movie, but you didn't really know where it was coming from. And so the janitor takes off all his clothes in the car, which I think, I didn't know this, but my boyfriend said that this is like something that happens with hypothermia, where you feel like you're getting really hot even though you're freezing to death, so you take off all your clothes. So I think that's what was happening because it's snowing. And then he's naked and walking back up through the snow, up to the school, and then through all the doors, and he goes out into the auditorium. And that's when the musical number happens. And he sings, I think it's from Oklahoma, I assume. I don't really know. I'm not super familiar with Oklahoma as a musical. But he sings a song, and like the audience is full of the whole cast of the movie, and like the girls who are mean to him at the school or who laughed at him who were students, and the girl with the big rash at the Dairy Queen-esque place. And even his girlfriend, and even one of the characters from a TV show that they were watching earlier, they all have like lines, like clearly lines drawn on their face to make them look older, and their hair is all sprayed gray. So it's like he's accepting an award, and he accepts it by singing a song, and that's the end of the movie. And I just think that that was so much more lackluster. It just was very strange. It's a very strange film. You could really enjoy it, and I would love to know if you did really enjoy it. Please let me know down below. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I just think it's not like my style of movie that I like to watch. And it's not what I was expecting after reading the book, is mostly sort of where I'm coming from. That being said, I don't think I would have liked it if I hadn't read the book at all, because I think I would have been even more confused. Like, my boyfriend was even more confused than I was, but because I sort of knew where it was going, I sort of understood what was happening, kind of. And I'm not sure that I would have really gotten there if I hadn't read the book. But like I said, you'll have to let me know in the comments down below. Did you read the book? Have you watched the movie? Which did you prefer? Did you like either of them? Did you not like either of them? I would love to know. Also, if you have any like different opinions about like maybe the movie was trying to make it more open-ended. I don't know, but if you have any opinions about the ending of the movie. Oh, that was the other thing that I wanted to mention. I'm thinking of ending things is like a double meaning, which is kind of obvious at this point, I think. But the girlfriend is thinking about ending her relationship with her boyfriend, but also it's all him, and he's thinking about ending his own life. So, but that is going to be it for me for this video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you will go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this from me, subscribe and comment down below, letting me know what I should read and watch the adaptation of next. And I hope you guys are having a really great December so far. It's been pretty busy for me, but I can't complain too much. And I will see you in the next video.